Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love money, mine. Love money, mine. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Erik Allen. Erik is truly a man of integrity, work ethic and overcomer. Growing up with a complicated childhood and broken home to raising himself from the age of 14. Unfortunately finding trouble along the way, desperately trying to fill the gaping void in his life. As a young man, Erik found himself empty and tired of settling for less. And after the feverish pursuit of the Holy Spirit, he decided to surrender and trust down the one that would never let him down. He gave his life to Christ. He is a really inspiring guy. He's a solopreneur, got loads to share, really inspiring story, and I can't wait for this one. So great, Erik. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for making the time for us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor to be here, Anna. Thank you.
So I know we were just gossiping before I clicked record and getting to know each other a bit better. And I know you're a whiz at podcasting because you've got 2 podcast shows yourself and you're a content creator. But you've got a really inspiring story. And as I was saying, I put this podcast together because when I went through a bit of a difficult time, I kind of wanted to give back. And I think by sharing our stories, it can be really powerful to help other people. Often I talk about my 3 pillars that kind of gave me equilibrium in my life. And this is why I call the show the Your Freedom Podcast, because I talk about freedom in love, which is more around self-care and self-love rather than kind of like romantic relationships, but the love that we give out to the world. Freedom in money, so financial freedom, and freedom in mind, because those, as I say, those 3 things, when one of them was imbalanced, I didn't, when I had the money and a strong mindset, but I wasn't looking after myself and wasn't giving the, self-care, was imbalanced. And when one of the others was not quite there, I was not in balance.
Right.
So I don't know from your story whether you can kind of relate to some of those things from your journey.
Yeah.
Because they inspiring one,
Yeah, it's so important to have those kind of balanced out. For me, I grew up in Eastern Washington State, out in the States here. And I grew up I thought it was a typical household, went to Sunday school. We played Little League. My dad would take my best friend Dave and I literally throw us in dumpsters behind stores on Saturday mornings and say, go find treasure. Like we would just treasure hunt in big dumpsters behind stores every weekend, And then when I was 11 years old, my parents decided to get a divorce. I'd never heard that word before. I didn't know anyone who had gotten a divorce before. So it was very new to me. And it was kind of a shock to my system. My mom ended up getting together with a guy pretty quick afterwards, I think. And he was very physically abusive almost immediately, where I remember him, punching her and hitting her all the time. I'd be looking through the outside of their, I was on the outside of the house looking through their bedroom window and he'd be hitting her with a cordless phone and, cops would show up and they would talk to him and my mom would never press charges and he'd never get arrested. And I didn't understand why my mom wouldn't press charges. And then they did the smart thing. They got pregnant and they decided to move us from small town Washington to smaller town Montana, Stevensville, Montana, population 1,200 people. And we had 5 acres and they just rented the property there. So the house, beautiful property, but they rent this house. It has got 3 bedrooms. It's one for them, one for my little brother, who's just a few months old, and then one for my sister, who's 4 years old, 4 years younger than me, excuse me. And so they said, Erik, you to live in the garage. I literally had this plastic tarp at the end of my bed that separated my bed from the truck that pulled in. And luckily I had a fireplace on my half of the garage that kept me semi-warm when it would get to negative degrees in the winter of Montana. And the abuse continued. So, continuing up there, the police were further away. And I remember there was this night when I was 13 years old, I was brushing my teeth. They came home arguing. Wasn't anything different than any other night. But as I was brushing my teeth, I felt in my heart that God was like, dude, you got to check out what's going on. So I took a look around the corner, and the way the house was set up was behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to the garage where I stayed. And as I took a look around the corner, he's on top of my mom in that pantry, and he's on top of her just one after the other, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, I got to get this guy off. And so I walked up behind him and I grabbed a cast iron pan and I swung as hard as I could and I split the back of his head open. And he turned around and he said, what the? And as he said that, I took another swing and split his forehead open. And I hit him so hard the second time that I actually fell over. And he was so drunk, it didn't knock him out. But I remember him standing up over me. He was bleeding down his face. He was starting to yell. My mom jumps up, lands like 6 punches in a row. There's blood splatting on the wall. Cops finally show up, take him to jail for the night. My mom, of course, doesn't press charges. And then I got kicked out of the house. So I had 3 months left of my freshman year of high school. Went and loved, basically stayed with my buddy Forrest. I slept on hardwood floors for the last 3 months of my
Sorry to interrupt. How old were you then?
13.
13. Okay.
Yeah.
We have different school systems, don't we? So I was trying to work out.
Oh, yeah. So I was 13 years old at the time. And so went and lived with my buddy on, slept on his hardwood floors to finish up my freshman year of high school there in Montana. And after that, I moved back to live with my dad in Washington. But that set me on a path of destruction for probably the next 10 years of my life, where I was battling addictions, no accountability from my dad. I was arrested at 18 for having a bong, and then I was kicked out 2 weeks after I graduated high school from my dad's house, and then basically lived on credit cards between the ages of 18 and 21. I moved 21 times. And by the time I'm 21, I was $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you kind of get out of that? Like, how did you, obviously, was it the bankruptcy that kind of woke you up, or what was it that kind of made you step? Because there's always like a wake up call to change something, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, for sure. You would think the bankrupt would have woke me up, or the arrest would have woke me up, but it really didn't. I ended up landing a job with Universal Records. And so I just showed up every day for 6 months, and I was like just stuffing posters in their mailroom. And I was an intern, wasn't getting paid. And then finally they were like, all right, dude, you're here every day. Let's just start paying you. So they hired me on as a mailroom clerk, and I was tracking sales and setting up meet and greets. It was awesome. And what happened though was, over that year that I worked for Universal, and the year before that, I had a buddy who managed a kind of an outdoor venue. So over 2 years, I probably went to about 175 concerts, and I had an open tab at every single thing I went to. So 2 to 3 concerts a week, drinking like crazy, living that rock star lifestyle without being a rock star. My 1 year anniversary at Universal Records, I got laid off, and it was during the Napster days, if people remember Napster. And so Napster killed the music industry. I went into this really deep depression. After that, I was kind of like working at Starbucks at night. I'd get off work, go drink my 6-pack of beer, and pass out. And that was kind of my life. I had no expectations of how to make it better. I was just living day by day. And one night, this girl walked into Starbucks and said, "Hey, we've got this cool college age event down in our church. Would you be interested in going?" Well, I was depressed. I had no friends, and she's good looking. Absolutely. What time do I need to be there? Right. And so that's what goes through my mind. So I go down there, and I think God was planting the seed in me, because I ended up running into guys that I had known for in high school and my brief stint in college. Man, I haven't seen you in 5 years. Man, I haven't seen you in 7 years. There's this weird connection. And about a month later, it was Easter 2004. I was managing a band. We went out and played a concert the night before Easter. And I woke up Easter morning surrounded by probably 15 dudes in my buddy's basement. And I woke up early and felt God in that moment say, "Dude, you're going down this path that's going to end your life very quickly if you don't make some changes in your life." And so I felt in that moment, it was time to make a change. And I quit cold turkey drugs, drinking cigarettes in that moment. And I gave my life to Christ. And then I called that girl up who had invited me to that church event. I got her voicemail. I said, "Hey, happy Easter. Maybe I'll see you at the store sometime." And a month later, we were dating, and now we've been married for almost 17 years.
I was just thinking that. That was like my kind of prediction. I thought, this is your long-term partner, I can tell.
Yeah. And we were actually both born at exactly 1:41 p.m.
Say that again.
We're born different days, different years, but we were both born at exactly the same minute, 1:41 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of inspiring story so far. I know you've got more to tell us with all the cool stuff that you're doing these days.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking people that could be listening to this, because as I say, when I put this together, I thought for people who could feel stuck, or especially over this last couple of years with everything that's going on in the world, there's been a lot of uncertainty. And I was pretty grateful that I'd kind of gone through all of my drama in 2015, because I think when you spend time on yourself alone and working on yourself, healing and all that kind of stuff, and self-development and growth and all that kind of stuff, and spirituality, you know, everything that I worked on. So it kind of gears you up for anything that happens. I'm not saying that, you know, I don't know the future of my life, and I'm sure there's going to be other things that happen to me that give me sort of troubled times, but I feel like, yes, I'll be geared up to be able to cope with those kind of things. And during this last sort of 18 months, I've got to say, it hasn't really affected me that much. I work from home. I feel pretty kind of strong-minded. I have my own opinions on the whole thing, probably because I did microbiology degree years ago. But you know, there's a lot of other people who maybe have lost their jobs, or they've got, you know, their job that they thought was a job for life is quite uncertain right now. Or even people who are running their own business and entrepreneur I know a few people that were in the travel industry, and that's been really, really challenging. Or their marriage has broken down through everything. So there's a lot of people I know listening to this that could be going through a challenging time. And obviously you've had quite a lot from what you shared with growing up, and you know, the addictions, and just the struggle really of kind of, you must have worked very strongly now on your kind of mindset. And I know you were talking about some of the things that you do, that you share as routines and daily motivations and that kind of stuff. So is there anything that you want to share with the listeners that can help people who could be struggling like you were right now?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, so I had to make that decision to get away from that life, right? So I had to step out of that area, that environment of hanging around with buddies who were, you know, drinking and going to concerts every night. So I had to take a step back, and I literally said, "Hey guys, I got to get healthy." And those guys are still my friends today. They respected me taking a step away. But what I ended up doing was I decided that if I wanted to make a change in my life, if I wanted to get away from that environment and make that change, I had to surround myself with the people that were living the life that I wanted to live. And so I went and sought out people that were sober, sought out people that were great in business, that were great fathers, great husbands, you know, great in volunteers in their church and stuff like that. And I just surrounded myself with them, and I just dove head in. I said, I want to be like you guys. I want to understand your story. How'd you get to where you're at? I was taking them out to coffee and just trying to understand their story, and just being in their presence motivated me to be better. And, you know, Ed Milet, I've spoke to on my show, and he's like, you know what, here's the deal. Is if you're walking around at 80 degrees and you're down in the slump, go find people that are walking around 120 degrees. Just being in their presence is going to lift you up and motivate you to be better. And that's what I had to do. I had to get into a situation or into an environment that would lift me up and make me a better person. And then at that point, once I realized that my past and other people's opinions of me do not define my future, then it was easy to go, boom, all right, I'm done. And it wasn't an easy like transition immediately. Like, yes, it was for me to get sober, but mentally I had to work on myself. And I ended up going through therapy when we first got married, and I'd never even talked about my story. I'm 42 right now. I didn't share my story till I was 39 years old. You know, so I held all this into and it just ate at me slowly over the years, but it was such a weight off my back once I shared my story. And really, I just wanted to impact one person with it. And, you know, and that's the goal. But I think, you know, if you're struggling with stuff, you have to, one, decide that you want to change, then take action and get into a new environment and surround yourself with the people that are living the life that you want to live. And that could be virtually or in person, you know.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing for mindset wise. And then for me, I'm a big early riser. So I wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week. And so when I wake up, I stack the wins. And when I say stack the wins, I literally open my eyes and I say out loud, thank you, God, for another day, because I've now been given another day to go hug my family, hold my family, see my kids, see my wife, and go make an impact on the world. You know, my goal is to wake up every day. So I've already accomplished goal number one. So I won for the day. There's win number one, right? And so I jump out of bed and I make my bed. There's 2 wins in 15 seconds. And that's already stacked the win. So I built that momentum that it's just going to be an awesome day. So if we can acknowledge that, man, if we wake up every day, that's a win, right? So we get to go make an impact. And then I have a personal goal to just put a smile on someone's face, whether that's in person or virtual. if I'm out at the store and someone's got a name tag on, I want to call them by their name. It's not just there so we can complain, right? I want to lift them up. I want to say, hey man, I hope your day's going great. Things like that. And, then I'm all about morning routines, right? So once I wake up, I get up to my office and I look at a vision wall that I created. So I've got quotes and pictures and, a funny quote on there that says, if I can't pee off my front porch, my neighbors are too close, right? So like, that's just a funny, like I want the property. So that's what motivates me every morning when I get up, and, I spend time in prayer. And the big thing, if you want to make a change, is you have to just be grateful. Like you can journal it, you can write it down. But every day when I get into prayer, it's more thankful, like be grateful. What are the things I'm grateful for today? Man, I get to live. I get to see my family. I have a job. I have family, like my finances are taken care of, like everything. So just being grateful. And if we can acknowledge that, man, our mindset will flip over instead of just being in that slump every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate with loads of everything that you just said, really.
Nice.
Because with kind of like my personal journey and stuff, because I think you've got to want to change. It's there's that whole comfortable and uncomfortable, isn't there? And
Yes.
and a lot of times comfortable just because you know that if you're going to make a change, you're going to be going into that uncomfortable zone. But to make a change, you're going to be growing in it. You are going to be making a positive change, hopefully. So we have to go into that uncomfortable kind of feeling for us to kind of change our lives, really. And you've got to make that decision and want to do it. And I also related to the fact that when you were saying about sharing your story, because it wasn't until last year, the beginning of 2020, that I started sharing my story, and that. It took me a while to commit to do it because people perceive me as a successful Amazon seller, and I didn't want to be kind of tarnished with this branding of this domestic violence survivor because I was ashamed of it, really.
Sure.
But I decided actually selfishly that I wanted to share it to heal because, like you said, you got that weight that you kind of felt like I wasn't living in my truth by pretending it wasn't there. So by sharing it, it was like I could offload it and take that weight off. And I knew that by sharing it, there would be other people that maybe could relate to it. And it's been amazing. To be honest, it's been the best thing I've done because I've helped so many people by sharing that. So, people listening to this who might feel that it is that thing of what other people think. And I saw a quote the other day, and I've mentioned this actually a few times recently on the podcast, that was saying, why is it you care about, I might not get the quote exactly right, but the gist of it was, why are you bothered about what other people think about you when you don't even love yourself?
Yes.
And I thought it really impacted me, that because I thought there are so many people, and I used to be like that, where I was really bothered about what people thought about me. I wouldn't admit it, or I wasn't even really fully aware of it. And I think a lot of people, get pressured by society, what their friends and family think, when actually to kind of live in your truth and be happy, you've got to just be you've got to be you and not really care about what anyone thinks about you to an extent, And I loved your sharing, hanging around with the right people, because people can be such an influence off you, can't they? So hanging around with motivated, positive people, sober people, can really, really have an impact on your life. And I think those are really, really great shares from what you said.
Absolutely. Well, and I just want to say, I'm proud of you. Like you went through that yuck that I witnessed as a kid, like, physical abuse, and you've got out of that. And now you're sharing your story and you are making an impact. So I think that's amazing. You're an absolute world changer just by sharing your story.
One question, or one, you don't have to answer this, but I was thinking, have you reconnected with your mum since you left?
So I do. I have sort of, I say that in sort of, because my wife and I moved from Washington State out to Idaho, knowing that we didn't have any family here. We started fresh. We didn't want someone who could just randomly show up at the door and knock in and say, hey, I'm in town. Like, so we're very far away from them. My mom actually lives down in Texas along with my sister, and she's got 3 kids. And so I'm not very close with them. I talk to them on the holidays. That's about it. Same with my dad. I talk with my dad maybe once a month. We'll text. Maybe every 6 weeks we might jump on a quick phone call. But I'm not very close to my family. In fact, all of my family, my dad, my mom, and her new boyfriend, husband, person, my sister and her boyfriend, husband, person, and all those kids, they all had Thanksgiving together down in Texas. I was the only one that wasn't there.
Right.
But and I chose not to. I just
say you chose not to, because it's probably best to keep them kind of like arm's length, really, isn't it?
yeah. And it's just interesting because when my wife and I, when we got married, we said I do, and we meant I do, and we're here to change the legacy of our family chain. But I think between both of our parents, we've had probably 12 people that are kind of like either a stepdad or stepmom involved in our parents' lives.
Mhm.
And it's crazy, so we've been married for 17 years, and we argue, we disagree on things. Our kids see us argue, their kids see us disagree, but they see us make up. They see us slow dance in the kitchen, right? They see us get through that. And I think that's really important. So, we're here to break those chains of addiction, abuse, rejection, and divorce. And so that's really our goal, is to change the legacy of our family tree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a difficult one, because it's one of those, because my whole thing was like, I didn't want to get divorced because I'm married for life. So I was seeing it, like if my husband had cancer or was ill, I would be there for him to get through it. So I was trying to, because I felt that he'd changed mentally through the relationship. I was trying to get him help first, but when that exhausted, it was like, I've got to save my soul, and I've got to save my children, because they're with it. And you talking about the pan on the back of the head, my son, it wasn't as brutal as yours. I was like, through a ball. So there wasn't any blood. But through a ball at his dad's head to distract him. With an instance. So kind of related to what you were saying. But maybe I will meet someone one day, but my biggest thing is protecting my children.
Absolutely.
I do not want like another guy who is gonna, it's like, I feel really protected, like these are my children. I don't want to live with another guy until they're older, or because it's like we've been through that journey, and that we're all healing, and I want them to flourish, and they are right now. So I wouldn't want to kind of wreck that for them, and I think this is just my opinion. I think a lot of people meet people too soon. It's like they need this partner, whereas actually if you love yourself enough, I can go on dates and different things like that, but I'm not gonna have like someone coming into our space. It's mine and the boys' space, and that's protected. But I know we all have different opinions, and I know other friends of mine that have split up and met people, and that's fine. But I think sometimes people jump into a relationship too quickly, and then you, like you say, the stepmom, stepdad, and you've got all these different mix of different things, and it's confusing, isn't it, for children? Children need that stability and love and warmth, and their home is their sacred place, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you are in a relationship and there is someone that's physically abusing you or emotionally abusing you, but especially on the physical side of it, like, I think that's an open door to walk away. Like there's no reason at all that any man should ever lay his hands on a woman ever. And I think it goes both ways, but I think the majority of cases that we see or you hear about, right, it's men being more abusive than women, right? But I think if that ever happens, man, I'm just telling you right now, if you're a lady listening to this, get out of that as quickly as you can, because that person is very likely to not change, or always have that tendency to continue to hit you or be physically abusive. I think that is a very valid reason to walk away from that relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's fear though. Like for me, it was the fear that he could do something, kill us all. So there was sometimes like a settle of, like we're talking about comfortable and uncomfortable, but when it's routinely happening and you've got that repetitive thing, and like you were sharing in your situation with your mum, it's like you've got to get out, you've got to save yourself, and if you can't do it for you, do it for your kids. So it's interesting hearing from your perspective, and with my story it's really interesting, I think, just hearing from a child's point of view, because my thing is like, I really want to fuel these. I've got two boys, they haven't got the dad in the life, and it's like I'm really trying to fuel them up and beef them up to be strong for the world and be able to also get that balance of expressing their emotions, but also, I think it's hard being a man, really, because society has that pressure where you can't show your emotions and all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
But at the same time, you've got to be tough, haven't you? And it's hard to have that balance, really, I think, as men. And that's why we see a lot of suicide. Suicide rates are really high in men, aren't they? Especially like in the early 20s. Because I think it's hard to speak and express it. And I think journaling's good, writing stuff down, get the boys to express themselves by just writing everything down. But I think it's challenging being a guy.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, you mentioned like you being the mom, you want to protect your boys. Absolutely. And I think that's where my family, my mom and didn't protect her kids. My wife's mother didn't protect her. Right. We both come from very broken families. And, so I think that was a very true sign of their real personality. Like they just chose to have that abuser and chose to be them, like choose them over their kids and didn't protect us. Right. And so I saw that now looking back, I'm like, whoa, like there were some definitely opportunities for her to protect her kids, and she didn't do that, and she never has. So it was just kind of an interesting to look at that perspective from the child of that. Right.
Yeah. So for people who are thinking, wow, this Erik guy is really inspiring, I'm loving this story, and explain what you're doing now, that because I know obviously you've got your own podcast shows. Let everybody know all about those so they can come and listen to those shows.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's the Erik Allen Show. It's where I focus on talking with entrepreneurs, world changers, and success-minded people. And, been blessed to speak with guys like Ed Mylett, Brad Lee, Bedros Keuilian, Jim the Rookie Morris, Dan Caldwell, the founder of Tap Out. And so I love doing that. I'm fascinated with people's stories, and I've been podcasting since 2017. It's a really big part of my life. I love getting up and doing this and talking with people and being guest on shows. And like I mentioned, I've been on this podcast tour for 2021. This is my 111th interview I've given this year. And so I thank you for being part of that journey. It's so awesome to be here. But, for me, I love talking with people and release my shows. It comes out every single Friday. I release a new episode. And then going into 2022, we might release 2 shows a week for a bit, just to kind of catch up a little bit through the year. But so every Friday it's going to drop. And then I do content creation. So brands will send me their products and say, hey, can you do a box opening, or can you do a how-to or explaining your video? I do some voiceover work. I do laser engraving. And, you talked about Etsy. I just got my first Etsy sale this week. And I was like, yes, so it's so exciting, even though it's like $7, right? But I was like, yes, still, right? So just putting it through.
I always say that to all my students. That first sale or the first one sale is like, oh my god, it really it's like it's like, if this works or someone's found it, it's a really good feeling, can't explain. So
so that's what I do. I love just being part of entrepreneurs and speaking life into people, and been, like I said, just been blessed to speak to so many amazing people like yourself as well. And so that's what I do. I love to just talk life into people.
It's good to connect with you because there is there's obviously synergy with our stories, but also I think there's some overlap on, because I help a lot of people with their physical product brands who could need someone like you to do like you say, the unboxing and some of the other stuff that you're doing, I'm sure, as regards to like the engraving or we should definitely connect and keep in touch afterwards, because I'm sure there's some overlap there.
Absolutely.
So we'll put all your details as regards to the podcast in our show notes. Are there any social platforms that you hang around with most? Is there somewhere that you like to be, if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best place?
Yeah, I'm big on Instagram. So I respond to every comment, every DM. It's just Erik G. Allen, ErikGallen. And my website is just erikallenmedia.com. So you can connect with me through that or on Instagram. I also have Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and all that stuff. But my main platforms that I really focus on is Instagram. And then just really recently got into TikTok, which we're starting to see some increase on that. But so we're doing that. But Instagram is probably my main platform.
Yeah, fab. And I always ask everybody this one question. but before I ask you that question, so there are regular listeners will know the question it is. But before I ask you that, is anything else that you think that has kept you kind of in that? What has been the biggest thing with your mindset to keep you going? Again, thinking of people that are listening to this that could be going through a bad patch. What has it been about your mindset that has kept you going, getting through those rough times? Has it been gratitude? Because I know you mentioned gratitude, didn't you? But
gratitude is huge. Yeah. And I think serving others, right? Like whatever you can do to help others, it is big, because just by giving away your time or giving away money or helping somebody do something that maybe they didn't know, but you do, like, just encouraging someone on a daily basis, being acknowledging that you're actually living, you got to live another day if you wake up, right? Like that's big. I think we take that for granted. We just wake up and go through the day. But if we actually just woke up and go, man, I get to live another day. Yes. Right. I can make an impact. So that's huge. Two things that I always recommend. One is about 5 years ago, I turned off the news, turn off all the news, right? Like don't allow that to come into your life. If you turn off the news, because they're not just news, right? They're sponsors. They're there to make money and they have their own agenda. So one, I would say turn off the news. And then number two, we just it's not my job to judge anybody. So like, I think if we just stop judging people on whether they wear a mask or not, vaccinated or not, like who they voted for, that's none of my business, right? I just want to love them where they're at. And I think if everybody just loved people where they're at and quit judging, man, the world would be so much a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I see some of this stuff that happens on Facebook, Instagram, all these opinions going on.
Yeah.
Will you shut up?
Right. Yeah. I had to limit my time on social media just to really focus on personal development. And that's a big thing too, is when you wake up in the morning, if you can stay off your phone for at least the first 30 to 45 minutes, just don't worry about social media. I know that's very hard for a lot of people, but if you can just not touch your phone for the first 30 to 45 minutes, man, your day is already starting fresh without having all that news junk, right?
Exactly. And another thing you said that I picked up on was about helping other people. I had this boss years ago that he was he was an ex-alcoholic, get my words out. And he had he really inspired his team by telling us all. He used to do these development days and really give us all the managers used to say, why is your team so motivated? But it was because he was real,
Yes.
And he shared this story and he used to say, look, if you're having a bad day, he was the best boss if you ever were sick, because he'd just go, look, take time, no questions asked, sort of thing. You take your time, come back when you're ready. And he really inspired me, actually. Just is somebody that I always think about. I'm still in touch with him, but I haven't heard from him for a while. But he always used to say, if you're having a bad day, go help someone else.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful, because it kind of makes you sort of forget about especially if you help someone that's maybe going through something worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you be grateful for what you have. And you've also done something really good for someone else.
I think another big part of that too is we have to acknowledge, are we having a bad day or are we having a bad 15 minutes?
Exactly.
Right. Like did we, I stubbed my toe on the couch and it hurt and it sucked really bad, but I'm not necessarily having a bad day, right? I'm having a bad 15 minutes. If I got in a car accident and I lived, that's get over that, right? You lived, right? So acknowledge that that's just a bad, maybe 15 or 20 minutes or maybe an hour, but get over that and go, man, I'm still alive. So, right, being grateful, acknowledging that it's just a bad moment, right? It's not a bad day.
Yeah. This is so true. Cool. Well, I'm going to ask you the question, what does freedom mean to you, Erik?
It's living life without asking for permission. And I say that meaning that for me, and I still work a full-time job, but I'm in the process of walking away from that full-time job, probably in June of next year, to do a full-time entrepreneurship. Right. But I think for me, that freedom is being able to have my family around. If I need to go to a kid's baseball game or go to an assembly for my kid or award ceremony for my kids, I don't want to ask for permission to do that. I'm just going to do it. And I don't ask for permission. I tell my boss that I'm going to do that. And I don't ask. I just say, hey, I'm going to do this and I'll be back. So I think the freedom is not financially, right? It's a mental thing, right? If you can live life on your own terms, I think that's freedom to me, and like I mentioned, my funny cartoon that's on my wall, if I can't pee off my front porch, then my neighbors are too close. That's freedom to me, to have the property on my to do what I want on my property, right? That's freedom to me.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can protect my family and be with them on a daily basis, that's freedom to me.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show. Everybody go and check out the Erik Allen show. We'll put all the details in the show notes or the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. He's such an inspiring guy. We must stay connected. It's been
Absolutely.
really great to have you on the show. I appreciate it.
Such an honor. Thank you, Anna. You are changing the world with your story in this podcast. So keep doing it. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.